What's going on, everybody? Antoine Ward here. Welcome to another edition of Chicago Forward, spotlighting leaders and innovators in the city of Chicago and Chicagoland area that are making a difference in the community. Alongside Brian Brady, a friend of mine. Brian, what's going on, brother?
Doing great. I bumped into Rashawn Walker at Darrell Bonner's wedding. It was a Mickford reunion. And I was like, we got to interview Rashawn. He's amazing. So I'm fired up for this interview.
Yes. And of course, it wouldn't be an interview with two former MICFA employee and a MICFA alum if we didn't have somebody who graduated from the MICFA program in and of itself, Mr. Rashawn Walker. Mr. Rashawn. I'm so used to saying Mr. and Mr., so forgive me. Rashawn, what's going on, brother?
How you guys doing, man? Appreciate you all having me on the show.
I just give people a little bit about your background, then we're going to hand you the baton and carry over, brother. You ready?
Sounds good, man. Sounds
All right,
great.
guys. About this awesome young gentleman. He joined Chicago Public Schools 11 years ago and worked with young people for 13 years, which is absolutely amazing. He's held many roles throughout his tenure as being part of the climate team, assistant to the dean's office, a club sponsor, and becoming a dean for two different schools. Not to mention CEO, and I'm going to say president because we're boss, CEO and president.
Walker presents one-on-one.
All right, so Rashawn, the first question I like to start off with a lot of our guests is that obviously we know your story, we know where you are, we know where you're headed. You're doing great things, but I always like to know the origin of a lot of people's thoughts and ideas and mindset behind things. So my first question to you is like, what was the genesis behind the ideology of what you're doing now in terms of meditation and working with students in and throughout the Chicagoland area?
Man, well, it all goes back to, if I had to just start from the jump, being introduced to issues, policies, problems within our city. And that really started when I joined MICFA and being, I think young kid on the South Side, you see things and you kind of experience things, but I didn't really kind of grasp or really wrap my mind around things till about my sophomore year. Yeah, that's when I joined MICFA. And I just feel like they just laid it out in front of me. They helped me connect a lot of dots in regards to school funding, policing, the way that aldermen, get, money for certain areas that you're in, like all these different kind of things that kind of just like, I think young people, but people in general, as I've gotten older now, don't know anything about. So for me, that hunger and thirst of just wanting to help, I always tell people I'm not just like a focused on my people thing, but just to help the people. I'm all about the people. I'm all about, everybody connecting and believing that everyone can work together. So, that kind of, I would say for me, started the ramp up of where I am today, my sophomore year, which is a very interesting year in high school for me.
You were a Kenwood student, right? We had a good pipeline from Kenwood. And tell us a little bit more about going from Kenwood, and then you went out west to college. And then how did you find meditation? And where in that journey did it come? And what did it do for you personally?
Starting from Kenwood and then ending up at Sierra Nevada College, which is located in Lake Tahoe, Nevada, MICFA. A great person named Hillary played a huge role in me finding my way out west. Started with me trying to just get somewhere, found a school in Portland. I think for me, the West Coast brings the level of calmness that we don't experience here in the city. And at that point, senior year, I would say the streets were, we were like at that point for me, like my buddies and people was knowing was starting to kind of filter into the streets and different things like that. So it was a college rep from Sierra Nevada College stepped into Kenwood, and showed me mountains, man. Yeah, reeled me in, showed me mountains, and going to Vegas for a few hours from the school, and just kind of a whole different life. And I just kind of had been searching, so everything kind of clicked from there. What I didn't expect was the real meditation component that Tahoe brought me. But, a lot of it started, like I said, with the Kenwood, being a High Parker. I love the South Side. I love High Park. I love the experience I've gotten. But it can be, perfect word for High Park, very mischief. It can be very deceiving, maybe it's even better, because there were a lot of things that happened to me while while what was that? You talking about senior year of high school, graduate? Yeah, after like literally right after I graduated high school, and then it just I want to say the tragic kind of role started after high school, and it didn't let up, and even the role I've chosen really hasn't let up. So you can kind of even say meditation is kind of like the battle. That's my I've chosen that as my design of my battle protection out here. So you go from Kenwood to Lake Tahoe. In Tahoe, my freshman year, my buddy, really one of good friends of mine, gets killed down the street from Obama's house, located in Hyde Park. And from that point on, just kind of trickle effect. Another buddy get killed, another buddy get locked up, and so that from that point, I did not finish at Lake Tahoe, Nevada. Came home, and for me, it was an instant. I got to get involved into the streets. I have to figure out how can I help my friends, because you're talking about 21 now. I probably lost like maybe 3 or 4 buddies, but now my younger friends and like even brothers, like their friends are starting to kind of experience this tragedy as well. So I'm in my mind, I'm 21 though, I'm young, but it is coming down y'all pipeline, and this is starting to move a little too fast. So you talk about 223, not really making real headway that I thought I would like to see in CPS in the Chicago. Is very political, and so if you don't have certain accolades and certain things and connections, it's hard for people to really hear what it is that you want. So went back to Lake Tahoe in 2013, and then that is kind of when my real intro kicked in, because at that point, 2013, I had started working at Kenwood, and I had started. So I graduated from Kenwood, went to Tahoe for a few years, went out there actually for 5 years, and then came back, and I went back in 2013, and then that is kind of the rush, I would say, from losing 4 friends to my brother. I have a brother who's locked up. I won't see him till I'm 50. I'm 32 now. That was almost going on 10 years ago. So, now things are starting to add up. Lose another friend, but then I started losing students, and so now I'm kind of like, okay, how am I dealing with this component? But life is happening, right? You still got bills, you still got family stuff, you still got, just all of these different components, different relationships in life. And for me, I just had to sit back, and I actually just took a trip to Tahoe. At that point in my life, when another really good friend of mine had got killed on the E-way here, I just had to go back just to kind of, like I said, resettle myself and get myself out of this space. And then I met a gentleman who came in from San Fran, and he did sound healing. And at this point, I'm living in Tahoe. I've just completely have gotten away from Chicago. I went back to school, and the sound healing, I would say, was like the boom. He's a gentleman. His name is Danny. He actually does a lot. I can't remember Danny's last name, but he does a lot of work for Stanford and a few other schools out west, colleges. So his work is, and I would say even a lot of wellness work is a little bit more popular out on the West Coast. But Danny was like another spark for me. He sat me in literally a room full of like 20 golden gongs and had me lay down. And it was about a 15, 20-minute session. And at times, I still feel the sound of the calmness, the sound of tranquility, the sound of just really bringing myself to the level I need to navigate my space from stress, from anxiety, from depression, from different components that were happening in my life. And the hardest thing for me was being in a space like a Tahoe where not many people are experiencing what I'm going through. So in that component, that created its own thing there, because I'm out here trying to rehabilitate and really gather myself, but now I'm kind of picking up another stressor. And I think this is something that a lot of young people who go off into, PWI, predominantly white institutions, if people don't know what that is, when you are from urban society, it can just be overwhelming. And my friends were.
Can I stop you one sec? Dr. Wyatt started the Brotherhood at Kenwood Academy, right?
Definitely, yes.
And that's where BWI was the program he started, right?
No, so his is Brotherhood. PWI, I'm not too sure, Brian.
Well, PWI was a different program he started.
I think he may have had a different pronoun to it.
Okay.
But people, just off of general substance, people would just say PWI, predominantly white institution, and so that is something. It's something that people would just kind of address like my school as, because I mean, now that I think about that component, I was the only.
So Tahoe was PWI. Yeah.
Yeah, top of the PWI, but it was only that because it was a small school. It was an art school, very, intricate, very, very intricate, very like detailed in regards to this artist, but it's also a different form of teaching. So I was an art and psychology major. I took classes like Death and Dying. And for me, Death and Dying is a class that will always kind of stick out because it was a class prepared to help you with death. But for me, dealing with death at such a large rush and such a large rate of my classmates, just white counterparts, they aren't growing up like a lot of my counterparts and people where I was coming from. So it was a different world. It was helpful, but I can also see how others struggle in that space. Whereas for me, I do good on my own. That's something I can stand in certain spaces and navigate that on my own and be okay. Still dealing with those level of emotions, but just still learning how to. I think Tahoe's helped me or prepare me, I should say. But then I've always kind of just been even with my buddies. I've always been the guy like, I don't think we should do that. Or maybe we shouldn't go here. I don't think that's the move. But you even in those instances, you are left alone. And so when you speak about now urban, community and urban society, I even tell myself, or I tell my, just as we growing up with buddies of mine, I don't, not to hype myself up, I don't see a lot of me's anymore. Like, I don't see that kid that's like, I don't know, bro, that ain't the move, or we shouldn't go there, or we shouldn't do that. You see now a lot of people kind of falling into this same realm of things. So back to the story of getting into Tahoe, and like I said with Danny, it was just a thing of I think in that moment having to sit with myself and embrace a lot of different emotions of my friend's past and getting the news of my brother having to really do the jail time. Even when I have really went back to school to try to finish up at Tahoe, it was trying to get away from students. It was trying to get away from that component. So I'm losing students while also losing friends. So I even went back to school with not the right mindset. Really, I was in a state of running away, a state of survival in my own world, and that led me to, after having this session with Danny, like, how can I, like, we had an hour-long conversation of just about ways I could learn about wellness. Wasn't really sure about, you're talking about 2014, wasn't really sure about meditation. I thought about therapy, thought about different ways, but I'm big on creating for myself and how can I help myself now. I'm not definitely advocating for that role for everyone. You definitely seek help. I'm definitely a big component of therapy, and there's so many different forms of therapy. Because even after the session I had with Danny, you're talking about 3 weeks later in class, I get introduced to art therapy. So I tell people it's as if Tahoe was walking me into meditation. We had a wellness coach come into my not my psych class, but my art class. And my art professor was like, no wood today, no clay. You guys are going to sit here and learn about the colors. And how can you navigate your emotions when you do feel overwhelmed, when you do feel like you aren't giving you all, when you're all the different components that we as people just deal with. I just always stress to other people in other communities, it's larger. So you have to think about, like I was referencing earlier, we all are dealing with our everyday life. Like, we have bills, relationships, all the different things and just unfortunate things that come with life. But when you do have all of these different components now that are thrown in from, friends dying young, young people that you've worked with, all these different things, it serves that pot a lot tougher, a lot harder. And a lot of people aren't able to navigate that. So I leave Tahoe 2014, still, on this road of just figuring out what's working for me. Brother kind of, I'm the oldest of seven. I mean, I always should advocate and tell people that, because I am the oldest of seven, really eight, because I can't forget my sister, step siblings, but still in all my siblings. So everyone comes to me. And still, like I said, having to deal with these components of friends, different relationships, because as we're getting older, we're having relationships and we're losing relationships and losing people. So it's just the wheel of life, as I try to explain to my students now. But the reason why, and you're going to probably hear me say navigate a lot, navigating your space to success, navigating your thoughts away from stress and worry and depression and anxiety. It's a necessary tool that has not been taught in my demographic. And I have seen the ways from my session with Danny, having art therapy introduced to my class. And from that point, my professor, even before we would start before we touch wood, clay, well, before we would do anything, he would introduce just a real deep breathing exercise. And so now that's the last year that I find my way back to Chicago, because like I said, my brother's having just some his struggles of growing up as a young man, and I've been kind of deemed that position for my brother's father role, as you would say. So even that, I always tell people, maybe I wouldn't even say maybe, should have stayed in school and figured it out and finished it through. But even now as I'm telling this story, I think it is just good for people to hear trials and tribulations. And for me, I chose the road of being this guy that thought he can help keep his brother in line and keep his brother together. But I had to soon realize as much as you want to do that, you still are going to have to figure out how to do for you, because he's still going to do what he wants to do. But you're talking about a more mature and older Rashawn stepping back into Chicago at this point.
So you're about 25. You've gone through this river of trauma. That Antoine, I know when we interviewed you, you had some similar experiences that you had, and that healing journey. And then you end up in Chicago Public Schools working with kids, right?
Yeah,
Is that
back in the city. Yeah, so at that point, back to Chicago, and just I had done a few different roles at Kenwood and at Shoesmith Elementary School from the sponsor, not sponsor, but take that back. I sponsored, and actually it's still running now. I'll speak with Miss Calloway about giving me my kudos later, but they have in my opinion, a huge program that affects the community tremendously in Hyde Park. And I would say I played a big part in building this bridge from Shoesmith to Kenwood. So, and it's not, and from my understanding, now Kenwood can correct me on this, I believe they opened up to all students, but it started with a group called Focus, which is fundamentally organizing, cultivating urban society within Kenwood's walls. Has been growing, has been moving for years now. But long story short, we started a program where students would give up their lunch periods 2 days out of the week and go over to Shoesmith, which it's literally like 2 blocks away from Kenwood High School. So it's a perfect time, and you get 45 minutes. You give up 2 days of your lunch to go eat with the kids, read a book. Nice
it's a
outside,
middle school or K5?
K5, it's elementary school. So they go preschool to 6, because that's how they do them now, right? Or is it 5th? They switch.
Beautiful.
Some schools go 5th, some schools go 6. But you're literally talking about these kids giving up 2 days out of their week. And then some of the basketball players, like as I said, I feel like they've opened it up to the whole school, because it's a way for you to earn community service hours. So it's a win-win. But for, like, I would always advocate and tell my students at the time I was working at Kenwood, it is a way for you to bridge the gap between where you are and you, because they watch and they see. And so,
Beautiful.
like I said, after doing stuff like that at Kenwood, running and being sponsored of a few clubs and college tours, I've been all, I feel like all across the country in regards to college tours. But Kenwood they do a lot, from Boston to New York, out all the way to Dartmouth, to your down south schools in Louisiana. So, kind of going all over. For me, covering all of that ground, I felt like it was something more for me to push, and something else for me to do. And so then I went 25. You're talking about my first experience as a dean at Ray Elementary School, which is right next to the University of Chicago. So that in itself was a whole experience, but a great one.
No, so I'm tracing your journey. You were in the MICFA program, like as a sophomore, started to get politically awakened, and then go out to Tahoe and you're navigating the space as a young black man. And thanks for teaching me PWI. I was a little dumb on that. In a PWI
Yeah.
space. And then you come back home and there's a lot of family trauma, a lot of friend trauma with death. And then you go back to and learn. And really, when you go back to Tahoe, you learn your meditation practice and come back and start doing some of that work in Chicago.
Yep.
And now you're at Ray Elementary as a dean. Let's fast forward to today because I just want to sort of get at the work you're doing today with kids with meditation and what you're seeing when you do that practice. Is it healing? Is it or is it sort of hit or miss?
Let me muddy it up. Hold on. I'm gonna black that question up a little bit. Sorry, Brian. I'm gonna black it up a little bit. I want to get to the meat and bones. First and foremost, kudos to you because I had this conversation the other day with somebody who works there or who converted from a coach to now working in like social emotional learning aspect of their department there at OR. And the conversation was that it is so hard to find African American men, not women, men. No shade to the ladies.
Exactly.
Yeah, African American men in our age group from 25 to 35, maybe a little older, to actually go into inner city schools and focus on the mental and emotional aspect of what we deal with on a day in and day out basis, who lived in that environment and know what the students are going through. So my initial question for you is that I'm a black male who's never, like, let's say I'm a student who's been in that environment who and let's be quite frank, we aren't taught how to be calm and to use meditation in that environment. You know, we are very reactionary when it comes to certain things, and usually being reactionary usually equates to being negative or doing something that's violent. How do you, as an African American male, how do you equate or how do you use a lot of what you've learned on the West Coast? How do you apply that to the teachings that you use now for inner city kids? And is it something that you feel like is a need for is a need more for not just with the meditation, but having more African American male leaders in those roles to help students out? How important is that?
That even though blacking it up, that's a real deep. That's like multiple answers. That's a layer answer. But just to really sum it up, because Mikva plays a part. Kenwood played a part. Todd, like everything played a part from the political. And let me, before I even start, understanding. Like you gotta have understanding as to like where you are, what's happening around you, and where it is you want to take it. Not what the world, not with the school, not with your mom, not with your dad, but where do you want to take it? So for me, it was first Mikva opening that political bubble, like bursting it, letting me know that like policies and different things just aren't working, especially in this city and especially in your demographic. You're talking about 49 at that point in funding. And then you correlate that with seeing it in your community. You see your buddies in certain spaces. I didn't grow up too bad, but I had a lot of other people who grew up a little less fortunate. And so you start to connect these dots. You go to Tahoe and mountain life. I went to school with Mobil's gas stations, CEO children at the time. So I've had the ability of being in certain spaces and having that understanding, sitting in those meetings with Brian about, policies and different things and funding. So for me, as I correlate, even Ray, the disconnect of parenting in Black cultures and tying that all in, I always give this real quick to just breakdown. Ray Elementary School, we would have every ethnicity you can think of. And me being the dean, I would do late pickups. So you're talking about third floor. Everybody got to walk up these stairs, right, to get their kids because they late picking them up. Everyone comes in and picks their kids up, kiss, hug. I'm sorry for being late. But when Black parents would come in, it was a totally different painting your picture. And it's not, some, fill away or whatever. It's not painting and trying to say everybody is. But the majority of my Black parents that would come in, and it's that disconnect. It's that not understanding. Because my students would ask me the next day, or my mama don't hug me like that when she come pick me up. My dad yell at me and you as a student, you're able to see these things happening around you with not the understanding. And so from the going to the, from leaving Ray, and then, going to nonprofit route, which GT7, Gifted Talented 7, was the core start of meditation. The Black and Brown Male Mentoring Program that was started 2017 by founder Kendall Straughter. And the whole narrative, well, I should say, it's changing the narrative of Black and Brown boys. That was our point. That was the goal. So this 2-3 year summer camp we ran, man, we would introduce them to culinary, art, yoga, meditation. We did not want them to think about football. We didn't want them to think about that. Like, y'all gonna do that when y'all get out of here. We already know that. We're not taking that from you. But we have to introduce you to more. We have to help you understand more. And so now I bring it full forward. That is the whole point of what I'm doing. And it's difficult because now with one-on-one, 4 years in now, and it's a I take that back. 3 years now. I always get a little ahead of myself. I've been meditating 7 years myself personally, but 2019 by a really tragic death. And I've always said, whenever me and this person get to meet again, who was Nipsey Hussle, he owed me a hug because his mentality of the marathon, this life is not a race. This life is, you have to continue to run it. You have to continue to build it. You cannot let anything come in the way of stopping you, because you're going to feel every emotion. You're going to embrace every emotion. And so having someone I looked up to, listened to since my freshman year of college, go through, I watched his story. And for me, it was a real putting together of, my community doesn't have that understanding. We don't know how to navigate those emotions when we become frustrated. Like you said, when the kids say, they tee up, and it goes left. And even now, I've, unfortunately, seen a lot of scenarios and situations with parents and students still doing so. So it is difficult because on the one hand of me being in this 3-year journey of starting this company, I can go up north and will not have this issue. Northside students totally get meditation. I think I told Brian the other day at the wedding, I had a conversation with a first grader about the properties of the benefits of what meditation is like, broke it down to me to a 9. And I cannot have that same conversation with the senior at a high school on the South Side. It's just not, So for me, for me, it's like, how do we figure that part out? Like, how do we help people have that understanding? Because and you being, a Black man yourself, I and working with the youth in general, this is with all of you, all ethnicity, but especially with Black boys, if you do not have an understanding as to what you have me doing or why you're doing it and why I'm doing it, it's the disconnect. And so, and as an educator, 13 years, being a dean twice, working in an environment like a Hyde Park, and then going all the way to a Pullman, which is on 97 in Greenwood. Me being a Hyde Parker myself, but then, I grew up around, but to be in that where I'm living with these kids every day, we don't have that understanding. We don't know what the benefits are of meditation, that skill set. So when I do bring meditation over to the South Side, it's always an interesting conversation beforehand. I had a young man tell me on 109th, he said, "Why you want me to close my eyes?" I said, and this is a third grader, and I said, "I want you to take 5 seconds to relax." And he looked at me and he said, "I never had nobody tell me to really how to do that before." And I was like, "Okay, so we're gonna create a space." Wow. So for me, man, it is in regards to the one-on-one fashion, and as we kind of intro into that, for me, it's creating a space. It's helping people understand, for one, why this is important, the benefits of why this is important, but then also helping you understand as you are creating your space, whether you go to the lake and meditate. For us in Chicago, we have the benefit right now doing both, but wintertime you got to go inside. So what does your own space look like for you to cleanse, collect, let go, and then come back? Because in order for you to continue to be this great person that you are for whoever or whatever work or whatever it is that you're doing, like I always tell people, we are the cornerstones in a lot of our families and a lot of our friendships and a lot of our situations in life. And people enjoy you and love you for who you are because of what you do. But if you don't take care of it, how can you maintain that? How can you keep it going? So just in regards to just everything that we even spoke about just a few moments ago, just to give you a snippet of what I do in my sessions, I always bring up the book bag metaphor, right? We all carry around book bags every day. And throughout our lives, we are adding to those book bags. So from your relationships to your bills, to your jobs, to your aspirations, to your dreams, to your manifestations, it's all in this bag. Now, the goal is how do you figure out how to navigate this space and make this bag not as heavy, because you can't get rid of the bag. This journey of life we are all on. As I tell some of my kids, same trip, different baggage. So how do you learn to carry your baggage? How do you learn to navigate your space and find success in what it is that you're doing? In our community, it's a little bit more difficult. And so for me, that's been the fun part, I think, of this first year, because this is my first full year. Well, I left CPS. I'll clear that up too. I left CPS Thanksgiving break to pursue meditation full time. And that's the goal, man, is to bring that whole component of understanding, because for me, like I said, politics, community, environment helped me lead to understanding why meditation was important and how it's helped me, all the trauma and different things that I've had to go through and experience. Therapy didn't work. So this was my own way of level of therapy. And I take that back. I won't say therapy didn't work for me. It was just I had to find my own form of therapy.
Brother, first of all, we're going to keep track afterwards, because there's a lot of profound things that you said in the conversation that as a black man, like, I'm not big on meditation. I have a partner who's big into it. I've never really bought into it because, like you said, it's not really haven't been something prevalent that's been in our communities. But first and foremost, we'll keep track. But like for me, I want to know for you, because you said you got a lot on your plate. You're doing well. You said you've been a year into where you are now. Yes.
This is 3 years now. This is like I said. So I always keep track of it. I literally started and this is, I mean, we can put this in here. The nonprofit fell apart February 2019. Like completely went through a whole thing. But things happen for a reason. And literally Nipsey Hussle got killed. That was March 31st, 2019. And like that day for me, like literally I said, I got to start it. I got to start something. It was in my mind, the idea. For me personally, I've never really wanted to be CEO. I've never really been like into building my company. It just hasn't really been a thing of mine in my head. I feel like it's always been there, but for me, I'm a team player, man. I can work with anybody to achieve any goal. But like I said, being a fan of Nipsey and understanding that, a lot of people, I feel like in my community, especially those close to me, weren't really understanding that this is a marathon. And it's been a very cool journey to the past 3 years to now to have been pushing that message and then correlating it with meditation. I did a session, and we can get into this component, where I've been invited out now as I'm growing meditation to Penn State University. So I've been out there the past 2 years, man, 2 times throughout the year with the Paul Robeson Center. And the whole point of them bringing me out was straight to the point. You have there's a Black Union department on their campus in the building, but it's small. You're talking about two students, to be Black, and I think one student was from Egypt. But anybody really from a diverse background, where they're in a classroom with maybe 200 or 300 of others who don't look like them. And even that alone, those 200 people, I try to tell my other counterparts, can be the coolest, down-to-earth most people, but it still is just overwhelming. It still is just, it can be, like how can I, like how you get in your own head, right? Like I was just speaking with someone earlier, like you start to attack yourself when no one probably in the room ain't even thinking about you. But it's these components and these stereotypes and all these different things that we as a culture, as a world, have pushed and have adapted, even without knowing in our own minds. And, you kind of like, you start to beat yourself up. And so the student after the session said, he was at the first one, caught the correlation between me and Nipsey. And he said, this meditation thing is like a marathon. It's a continuation of practice. It's a continuation of growing. It's a continuation of understanding that I'm going to feel every emotion. Like you're going to go through every emotion. I always tell my students, especially when you're trying to achieve the goals and manifestation dreams, like I never give up on it. but you got to understand you're gonna go through everything to get to it. And for me, that has my goals and my gifts have been in meditation, and so getting to this point has been that's been the goal, is understanding that part. It's a marathon, so you're not gonna get it in 5 minutes. Like, you ain't better sit there and just close your thoughts out and quiet the mind. And even then, one biggest thing, people, and I'll let you guys go. One thing people always try to tell me is, man, when I meditate, I can't quiet my thoughts. I'm always thinking. I mean, the trick with meditation is you're not going to navigating those thoughts, navigating those messages that you're giving yourself, those thoughts and all those different things that you're going through, to the spaces that they need to be properly, right? And even in those moments, you cut your mind off. I've learned that the mind is a tool. You gotta know when to use it and when not.
Yeah, my partner is into meditation and trying to get me, and she always talks about thoughts
We
being
spoke about that. Clutter, they help. They help, Brian.
Yeah, it helps a lot of trauma. Antoine and I both have partners who like meditation and are both Ukrainian, which the Ukrainian people need some meditation these days too.
Exactly. It's rough times.
Yeah, but it makes me think about. I'll white this up a little bit just for my question. But Nipsey Russell, I was in LA when he died, and I didn't know who he was, and the whole city went into mourning. I was like, how did I not know who Nipsey Russell was? This guy was just beloved around the country, and in LA, he was really one of the top heroes. So I'm just saying that to my white friends watching this video pod. If you haven't heard of Nipsey Russell, go look him up. Listen to some of his
Nipsey Hussle. I think Nipsey Russell's as a comedian, so you might.
Yeah, you're right. That's the whole idea.
I think that is a comedian. I think that actually is.
Nipsey Hussle.
But
exactly.
even then, I tell people,
I'm glad I'm whiting this up.
Even if you don't get into the music, it's the message. And I think everyone has something to take away in regards to, understanding your life. And, you have to, and I mean, what I can say, and this is, for me growing up in Hyde Park and growing up also in Tahoe, a lot of my friends in, certain areas that I've grown up not in the lifestyle I have, they have a better understanding of the marathon mindset more so than my friends in the city and urban communities. And what I mean by that is, like, you don't even have to necessarily break down the marathon mindset to, my white counterparts or people who just grew up a little bit better, because they're living for tomorrow. They understanding that what they did today is going to be there tomorrow. In our communities, man, especially now, because I've definitely been feeling like now there's a different morale kind of in the city. People, I think, really lack that understanding of a marathon mindset, is because, a lot of people don't feel like tomorrow is guaranteed. Even now, a lot of the high schools I go in, like they do like that. They be shooting at each other, like, you gonna die tomorrow, like all that kind of, like, that's like, excuse my language, like that's the way that they interact with each other now. And it's very weird. Like, it's weird. I'm like, I got friends. I wish I could see. Like, so I don't get, But when you are living in a mindset of not feeling like things are guaranteed, or better yet, I forget the gentleman's name. As a doctor, I wish I remember his name, but he was watching a video, and it's this space. It definitely is real within urban cities and urban communities, where it's a survival mindset. No one knows what it means to thrive. So you're constantly, I think I might have mentioned this to Brian, you're constantly in this thrival mode. Or it might have been Arnie. I can't remember who. You have to remind me later, Brian. But, people in urban communities are really in survival mode. It's this constant, I have to figure it out every day, what's next. And that, when you're living in that doesn't allow you to excel. Like, you don't thrive. And once I try to tell my students, once you understand the components of thriving and getting out of survival mode, you take off. Like, there's no coming back from that. But when you don't, like I said, going back to understanding, there's just a lot of things that are broken within our community, and people don't have that understanding. Even when you say, like, black men, they, that's a whole, we have to do a whole different, component. But just, I think, and this is working with young men in general of all, I think young men of all ethnicities, we lack that understanding of emotions or being emotional. And when we do, he's soft, or, all these components. because I deal with this with all boys, you know, and it's a real thing of having to have that understanding. Meditation is a cool skill set. That is a skill set that can help you navigate, you know, your space to success. It is a skill set that Kobe Bryant has used. So these are things that I had to I had to throw out names to kids like Kobe meditates, and G Herbo has, you know, a PTSD program, and you know, just to, you know, after what I'm learning now with my work, how to make it cool.
Yeah,
So that's the tie-in.
yeah, I was just gonna add to that, and you kind of already answered the question. It's like, and this may be a question that you may not even know right now, but that's cool because I still want to
Yep.
hear it. I'm all about putting things into existence. Like,
Definitely.
what what legacy do you hope to have coming out of the work that you're doing now, long term?
Wow. I mean, honestly, as you said it, it felt like that was the answer was formulated. It is that component. You know, the legacy is, you know, I don't know if I'll ever get to I always say this, the point of like a big artist, a Nipsey Hussle or Lil Wayne, but the my hope is to have that kind of effect that they have on people, on young people, and that seriously is understanding that this is a real life journey. And I've been on Instagram and social media and those close to me, and as I'm building, people see it, and that's my hope, man, to help people understand that you don't have to do it the way that society has told us. You don't have to do it the way that your hood has told you. Like, there's so many different ways to this growth process, and understanding the real gems of life. And one of the real gems is, in my opinion, I always speak it, I'm gonna keep pushing it, is meditation. Like I said, I never really saw myself as a CEO, but I had these dreams. I had these thoughts. I saw myself in the spaces on Penn State stage, and like I don't know, Brian, he may not remember a Mikva event where I got tongue tied and it was not good. Like public speaking and all that kind of not my thing. But it's crazy when you have a message inside of you that you know that you want to get out. And you know, that's my whole thing, man, is helping people understand that what you think and what you believe, if you put the work in, you put the emotion in, and you put the real manifestation into it, like speak it, like we were just saying, it'll come true. Because everything that I've dreamed about, spoke about, even people that have spoke about seeing me do meditation. Like, it's crazy. It all has come, you know, to fruition. And so, you know, the hope is to have that same level of impact. Because like I say, even with Nipsey, it's the music, it's the artist, yeah, but it's more the impact he had on his community. It's more the work that he has left for his hood in LA. Like, even when I go back to LA, 'cause I get a lot of work out west. But wellness is just a more, I think, a bigger, has a big understanding with that word again, right? With the concept of wellness and meditation. Um, and, you know, and so Brian, when you say you were actually out there, that's crazy. You were out there on that day. It was because it was the music, but it was the impact of his people. And that is my hope, to have that level of impact on my people, whether it's just here in Hyde Park or in the different spaces that I visit and I attend to. I want them to always understand that, you know, one-on-one is about navigating those emotions, those thoughts, those manifestations, those dreams to belief and to real correlation to the spaces they need to be in.
Yeah, I got one last comment and then one last question, and then we'll do our rapid fire round. But
Okay.
this has been really powerful, and I'm laughing a little bit myself being the bumbling white guy on PWI. I'm playing the bumbling white guy, so I'll keep playing this role because it comes naturally to me. But it makes me think. You know, I interviewed a couple MCFA alums a few months ago, Carneal Griffin and Dion Dawson, who are amazing social entrepreneurs. And my computer died about a third of the way through the interview, and I was interviewing both of them about. It was one of the best interviews that ever happened because I actually disappeared off the screen. But I say that somewhat in seriousness. Like, there's a lived reality for being a Black man in this city, in this country, that, you know, I'm a fly on the wall. I have no perspective on it. But it's really enlightening for people like me to hear you guys talk and share about it, and to share how you navigate, I think, is the key word you keep saying, Rashawn.
Mm-hmm.
You're always navigating.
Yeah.
And so That's deep and powerful. So I appreciate you letting me bumble and eavesdrop in
No
on this.
worries.
So
we're birthday buddies. We're birthday buddies, Brian. So we're
yeah,
tied in.
December 12th, December 12th.
Yeah.
I do got a question for you. Again, this might be a
Definitely.
bumbling white guy question, which is when we talk about city stuff, and I know you get white policymakers together, they're always talking handgun control, which I think is a good thing, and they're talking poverty measures. I hear you talking this component that's integral, which is inward work to heal generations of trauma, right, and
Yeah.
institutional racism. What in your opinion for Chicago to become what it needs to become? What is that right formulation for healing work, for policy work, for political work?
Yeah, that's a full circle. That's a hard question. But I mean, if I can give you two, if I can be just like the guy who is like on the block with like kids and like growing up in the community, I would I would suggest taking the move that Canada did. I mean, completely ban handgun like that, because that, in my opinion, being from the streets, and I mean, Hyde Park, I tell people, this is the funny thing I always tell people about Hyde Park. A lot of people try to give us no, like, y'all not from the streets. And I'd say a lot of wild things have happened at Hyde Park. And they don't put it on the news because of policy. I won't even say policy. We'll say politicians, people that live there, whatever. But we know how Chicago works. It's very political. And so, with that, unless you're really like making those kind of like get rid of guns completely. You catch people with guns. You know what I'm saying? You really do some things differently where you're trying to really get them off the street. But we be political. America's not going to do that. America has no interest in getting rid of guns. It's too much of a lucrative business. And that's what America's been built on. So it has to be inner. It has to be with, the head of the household, those moms, those dads. Being a dean recently, one thing, it's not an issue, but it's an issue if you don't have the proper guidance, if you don't have the proper growth being brought up. And what we do now have are a lot of young parents who just don't know how to do it. And that's just me being very honest, 19, 18, 21, 23, you're still growing. I'm still figuring out my life. I'm about to turn 33. So, I'm not telling anybody how to do it or when to do it. But if you are going to do this child part, this having kids, growing up in community, like even if you don't have kids, you have to understand what you would do. Like what you do affects everyone around you. And that's something I stress in my message, my sessions, my message in general. Like what we do affects everyone around us. So it's imperative. It's important that we start inner healing and dealing with ourselves, because I don't want to get too deep into politics. I ain't saying nobody's gonna save us, nothing like that. But it's got to start homegrown, man. It's got to start in the community. It's got to start in the schools, the spaces where people really can be affected and really can, feel that change. Because in certain parts of the city, I think a friend of mine from MDU, Jenny, who's finishing up her doctorate, she introduced me to, I don't know where exactly the school is. I had to look back at the article, but a dean, I won't even say the dean, but the school pretty much has taken out discipline for meditation. And a lot of people are like, well, you need discipline. You do need discipline to some extent. But one thing I try to tell a lot of my teachers, because I've never been a teacher in the classroom, but I've been a teacher outside the classroom. And this generation needs understanding. You can't tell these kids not to read this book and study that test and not have them understand why. They ain't trying to hear it. Like that's just and you can call that a level of trauma. You can paint it however you want, man. But until people are able to deal with the emotion of trauma, because the level of trauma is so high in our country. But I always try to explain to people, and we can wrap it up after this. As crazy as these school shootings have been, as crazy as Ukraine, like all these unfortunate, very sad, and very, very unfortunate situations, everyday life is still happening for a lot of people, and everyday life for a lot of people is very bad. So we have a lot of different issues, right? That are troubling and that are very overwhelming. But even when the world is crashing on the worst days, and I get a lot of people who reach out to me then, like, what should I do? This is happening, that's happening in Ukraine, like it's overwhelming. Take 5 seconds. Take 5 seconds, take a deep breath. That alone sends messages to the brain to calm itself, to relax itself. And when you are in a calm and a relaxed state, you make a better decision. So maybe then you understand. Let me go for a drive. Let me go to the beach and just sit out and let me feel the wind. Like those simple things, simplicity and inner peace, I tell people can help save us from a lot more trauma. That's the
It's
goal.
relaxing to even talk to you, Rashawn. You're
I'm
filled
telling
with.
you, man.
Hey, that's the goal, man. I
I
hope
feel like you
so.
should be building us right now.
Yeah.
No, this is
Be
all a
real with
great platform for me, so I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, all right. So now that we got all the serious stuff out of the way,
Okay, right
Sean,
now the good stuff.
we appreciate you, man. Like I said, I'm gonna definitely keep touching base with you afterwards. But let's just get to some more lighthearted stuff. It's hot out, so I got a couple Chicago questions, being homegrown. So I feel like I kind of got the answers to some of these already because you're from the South Side, but you never know.
Okay.
So let's go.
Let's see.
First question, obviously, sports question: Cubs or White Sox?
You already know the Sox, man.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this one too, but we'll still check it out. Harold's or Uncle Remy's?
Ooh, gotta go. I gotta go Harold. Gotta go Harold. Gotta go
Uh,
Harold.
okay, okay. All right. So most underrated and overrated place in the city of Chicago that's not in Hyde Park. We'll cover Hyde Park after, but most underrated and overrated place in Chicago.
Most overrated. Most overrated place in Chicago. Overrated, I would have to say overrated. Honestly, Millennium Park. This is me. That's just me. Millennium Park, I think is a little overrated. I like it though, but it's a little overrated. You said what's
Underrated
not
place.
getting underrated? What's not getting enough play in Chicago? Um, hmm, I'll give you one. Young ladies and their assistance on behavior, or just assistance and help and programming and things in general. I don't feel like we're doing enough for the young ladies.
Okay, okay. Now, if I've never visited Hyde Park before, if I'm from Chicago and I've never visited, I've been stuck on the West Side my entire life or South Side my entire life. What is the one place that I could go to that's in Hyde Park that'll give me that Hyde Park feel that'll make me that Hyde Park can be proud of as a resident there?
Oh man, you got to go to the point. You got to go to the
What's the name
point
of
to the
it?
lake. The point,
The Point.
the lakefront up there on 55th, 57th Street. That and taking a walk down 53rd. But I give you. But now this is where you will find a real Hyde Parker. There's no knock to the people that are in Hyde Park now, but I was there in Hyde Park when we didn't have downtown Hyde Park. I wouldn't even say go on 53rd. If you want to really get a real essence of Hyde Park, just take a stroll up 51st Street or take a stroll up 54th, any street besides 53rd, and you will get the real essence of what Hyde Park is. Because the downtown stuff is a little too busy for me. I'm not. I tell people Tahoe, and me and Brian, we spoke about this West Coast life. It had deterred me a little bit from the city, man. I don't always be into it. So downtown stuff, I always tell people, you want to get the essence and the culture of people. Walk on those blocks where it's not busy. You're gonna run into just some local people. 51st, which has Obama's old house, but it's still barricade like he lives there. Get those real Hyde Park feels real, I would say.
So the question is, how would you sum up in one sentence what you do and how can you get young people involved in black people, young black men or women involved in one sentence? Tell me.
One sentence. Having the understanding to navigating those no, not traumatic, but having that understanding of what to do with those traumatic and overbearing emotions. Learning how to control your breathing, learning how to navigate your thoughts, and learning how to create your space for success, and to also dive more into the things and the dreams that you have to accomplish those goals.
Let's get your work out to more and more people.
Um,
How do we do it?
you can find me at well, right now, I mean, you can put my phone number really, because I'm going through a revamp of the website. I had the website up for a year, so that'll be up actually before the summer is over. Just rechanging some things, adding different testimonies and different things. But you can find me on my Instagram, which is Walker Presents 101. There's my phone number, which is 312-810-6617. shoot me a text. But then also emailing. I've been receiving a lot of different session requests from email since the website is down. Because that's email is on most of my social media components. So it's rkw.1on1@gmail.com. I'll say it again, rkw.1on1@gmail.com. Come tap in and learn how to create a space. That is, you can kind of say like my slogan or whatever the case people try to say it is, but I'm really big on creating a space because for people who've never experienced meditation or just don't even really understand what the benefits of it and what it can do. The main part why I start off on creating the space is because I got to get you in. I got to get you into what it is, what you know, the feel, the belief. So that goes from we do sage, we do essential oils, we do sessions outside of the lake, we do indoor sessions. It is about the LED lights. It is about, you know, the music. It is about every component of what you're thinking in regards to meditating. It's bringing that to the forefront and having that conversation before, like the young man said, why you asking me to close my eyes? It's having that conversation beforehand and helping you understand that we are about to take a 3-level trip. The first step is working in just calming, relaxing. The second is cleansing, letting go. And that third is where we create a layer of 3 different stages that we go through. And that last being the book bag component that I kind of share with you guys, where we do the deep breathing, we do all the different things, but then we kind of bring things back to reality. As you said, not trying to get too harsh or not trying to get too overbearing. It's really having that understanding that some relationships you can't get rid of. Some responsibilities aren't vetted. But how do you navigate that? How do you, and I always tell people, even in this, I mean, we're in a pandemic state still. We're still in a very chaotic state. And on this, I would say most people workspaces, or work form, however you want to look at it, have, you know, most of those spaces haven't respected people's transition. So on top of this chaotic world that we're going through, on the day-to-day issues that we have to deal with, we're still going through a pandemic, and, you know, a lot of people still haven't or still don't feel respected. So creating a space right now for yourself to step away from, whether it's going into a meeting, having that uncomfortable conversation with a spouse, whatever it is, take 5 seconds. I always tell people, take 5 seconds, collect yourself, breathe, and then step into it and just see how much better you feel. And with that being said, I hope
you are a healing
that
force,
you all,
Rashawn.
I'm hoping so. And with that being said, I hope that everyone watching, please come and join. You can find me by these 2 gentlemen here. And let's create a space.
Hey, Rashawn, you know what's funny? And I hope this is not insulting to you at all, or insulting to anybody who's watching. But I would love to see you on like a Kevin Samuel type platform without all, without all the insulting and passionate women. I would like to see you in a suit and tie, brother, at a desk, like having these one-on-one conversations with men and women about meditating and about ways they can handle situations, because you don't see a lot of that. And the way you talk and the way you present yourself, brother, like as a black man, I'm absolutely proud, but also too knowing that there's somebody out there like doing the work in the community to work with our youth. It's something that's so vital in today's society with everything that's going on. Brother, we appreciate you coming on. We appreciate all the work that you've done and continue to do and you're going to do in the future. We'll touch base. And thank you so much for being on Chicago Forward, man. You're the reason why we do things like this.
I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for the platform. Thank you for the opportunity, Brian. As always, thank you so much, sir. This is like, for one, this is great because I don't think we, for one, a lot of different podcasts now, but I don't know if we have a lot that are really, and the name of it, Chicago Forward. Even as I've played around, moving around, this will always be based. Chicago is always home. So the goal is to always get, you know, along with connecting with other people, this is always homegrown. So I appreciate you all inviting me and having me onto the space. And let's do it. You know, I'm interested. It's funny. I had a buddy, she's in Atlanta right now, a TV producer. She's like, you should throw an idea at me about, you know, some TV stuff. I was like, you know, the whole point though of this work is to help people understand meditation, breathing, calm down. Yeah, we're gonna sit, we're gonna relax, but we also have this component where we talk, we navigate our emotions, Because I think the biggest thing too, man, a lot of people just need someone that they can trust, that they can talk to.
That's a great way to end it. Yeah, Rashawn, it's just so wonderful to know you as a teenager and see you as this grown.
Yes, it's been a long time, Brian.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I appreciate it, guys. I definitely appreciate this. I look forward to more. Definitely look forward to more.
We'll be in touch for sure.
All right. For myself, Brian, Rashawn, guys, thank you so much for tuning into Chicago 4. For more content, please go to Chicago 4 page on Facebook as well as YouTube, and go ahead and on Instagram.